Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Got Sunday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there tonight. Had yourselves a fantastic Sunday, and I certainly hope everyone had a great weekend as it comes to an end. About to head off into another work week, and speaking of our work week, it's going to be incredibly active in regards to severe weather. Tomorrow is going to probably be one of the higher end days. I think we're going to have a lot of severe weather for Tuesday. I think also Wednesday could be one of those higher end days, and we're going to talk about why in this video. We're going to talk about Thursday and Friday also. Now, I will tell you, Tuesday through Friday, we're not going to have, a zoomed in detailed panel for that. All we know right now is that the ingredients will be there after Monday also. Now for Monday, which we'll talk about right off the dot in this video, we're going to get very detailed on. We'll be able to show you some short range model guidance, the ingredients coming together, and all those things that should help you guys, give you guys a really good idea of what could potentially unfold for tomorrow. And I'm telling you, tomorrow could be a higher end deal. It's a moderate risk right now. If some of this short range model guidance kind of comes in agreement with like supercells, discrete storms, guys, I think they just might pull the trigger on a high risk. We just got to see. Let's hope not. I don't want their confidence too high. But of course, if it is high, then it gives people more awareness of what potentially unfolds for tomorrow. So I think regardless, we're going to get a lot of severe weather. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to break it all down. And like I said, if you're in the area to watch for Tuesday through Friday, I'm going to get very detailed on that too. We're just not in range of the short range model guidance. So definitely stay tuned for that. Take advantage of those timestamps, guys. They're there to help you guys. You can skip right ahead if you don't like me talking so much in the beginning of the video. I don't blame you one bit. This just helps me get going when I do this 2-minute intro. So definitely take advantage of them. Jump ahead. Don't blame you one bit. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So we're going to start off by looking at water vapor loop. A couple things to mention here when we're looking at this. The whiter colors indicates more moisture in the atmosphere. The more doled out colors, darker grays, almost black, indicates more drier air. Now, this doesn't always tell us what's going on at the surface. You could have a whole lot of white over an area, and it might not be snowing or raining, anything. Okay, but there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, though. So you see that right in this region. You're seeing little pop-up showers and storms across the southeast, mid-Atlantic, the central and southern Alps region. And then I want you to put your eyes on this out west, and this is the main reason why we are showing this. If you look really closely, there's a spin right into here. We got, some higher moisture in the atmosphere over here, okay? But really focus in on that spin. That's our upper trough, an area of lower pressure, an upper low, whatever you want to call it. This is our upper trough, and right now, it looks like it's taking on that positive and transitioning to that neutral tilt. So what I mean by all that tilt talk that I'm talking about, let's make sure this works first, and it does. So if you look at it, it looks like, moisture streams down here, and then it kind of ejects across the Rockies, right? And then in the middle of this right here, we kind of have this spin, right? That's our area of low pressure, creating a lot of lower elevation rain and higher elevation snow across the western higher elevations. If you're in the higher elevations, it's snow, lower elevation rain. But this is our spin. This is our system that's going to create all the severe weather literally all week long. We're going to have pieces of energy that kind of round the base of this trough, whether it's surface low, short wave troughs. Just think of it as energy that rounds the base of these upper troughs, this area of lower pressure. Okay, we'll get this back off your screen. Now, this thing right now is kind of taking on this tilt right now. Eventually, this will continue to spin around, and it'll take on this tilt, okay, which is what we call a negative tilt. When these upper troughs go negative, that's a sign of a strengthening storm system. Typically, we get some sort of deepening of a surface low, which does nothing but enhance all the ingredients for severe weather. It really yanks in that low-level jet, those low-level winds about a mile above our heads, really increases the damaging wind threat, all hazards, tornado threat, all of the above, okay? So that will happen, and as it happens, we are going to have, if you notice, you see how this flow is kind of going like this? That's our southwesterly flow, and this will continue to move in this area, and eventually this flow will go over this region, yanking in a lot of moist air all the way up here before eventually a cold front sweeps in and really stabilizes the atmosphere. Surface low will be up here tomorrow, most likely sometime tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. And this will just really get a low-level jet really ramping in this area right in here. Also here too, but much more stable conditions. And of course, that's where our severe weather will happen. Okay, so just wanted to show you the big piece of the puzzle, right, of what's driving this severe weather event. You can see it right here. It's our upper trough. So we continue to move forward. Let's just jump right into it. So this is Monday, latest outlook. Of course, we'll wake up tomorrow morning. We'll have some new information. Will we see that pink color, which symbolizes a high risk, level 5 out of 5? We don't know yet. But right now, a relatively small, moderate risk. But I'm telling you, if you live in this moderate risk area, the enhanced risk area also, you got to watch out for strong tornadoes. So as of right now, we'll take a look at the southern mode. Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas. So, and then we'll look at Kansas, Missouri, and all the other states up there, Nebraska. So Oklahoma City, Norman, you have a moderate risk. The level 3 out of 5 in the orange, that's an enhanced risk. The yellow is what we call slight, level 2 out of 5. And the dark green, that's a level 1 out of 5. Not a whole lot of changes from this since this morning's outlook, but of course we want to go back over this information for any new viewers, right? So we go back out of this, and then we look at the tornado outlook. Okay, so in this red area, that means there's a 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles on any given point. In the yellow area, that means there's a 10% chance, same criteria. All right, and then in the brown area, a 5% chance, and in the green area, there's a 2% chance. So I said this in the last couple of videos. Say you're in Oklahoma City, and someone came up to your house and said, hey man, there's going to be a 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of your house. Wouldn't that make you concerned? I mean, it would for me. And I'm not coming on here to tell you guys, hey, freak out if you live in this red area or yellow area. I'm just telling you, be aware, take these outlooks serious, because the ingredients are going to be on the table tomorrow. So 15% in the red area. The yellow area is a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location. And I've already said all that. So let's focus on this. You see the black outline region? That means there's also a hatch risk of severe weather, which means there's a 10% risk of significant severe weather. In this case, it being tornadoes, EF2 or higher. So if you live in the black outline region with the black dashes going in between it, which pretty much includes all the red and yellow area, that means there's a 10% chance of a EF2 or higher tornado. Can I go back out of this and we look at the wind outlook? Remember we talked about this morning. We thought that maybe the risk of significant winds would extend a little bit further south, when they have. They've extended a little bit further south, and I think they got the right idea here for sure. But in the red area, there's a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. In the yellow, a 15% risk of that. So, Oklahoma City, Norman, including this Tulsa, down to Lawton, Ardmore, Dallas-Fort Worth area, you're in that, you're below the 15% risk, but you guys have a chance to see some severe weather. Just, it looks like you're going to be lacking forcing for thunderstorm development down here in North Texas. But we have to see. Any storms that can get going down here could produce all hazards. So don't want to completely ignore my folks down here in North Texas. But you look up here in like Tulsa, what is that, Bartlesville, there's a 10% chance of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher. That's that hatch risk area. Okay, if you live in that, that means there's a chance of significant severe winds. 65 knots or higher, that's like 70, 75 miles per hour or higher. Hurricane force winds, Category 1 hurricane force winds. Okay, don't want to ignore my folks here in Arkansas. All right, you folks do have that 15% chance of winds exceeding that 55 to 60 miles per hour. Even a very small corner way up here in northwestern Arkansas has that chance of significant severe winds. Okay, we back out of this. We look at the hail outlook. Guys, this is a big deal too. In that pink color, you have a 45% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Okay, Oklahoma City, Norman, everybody in between, especially to the north and the southern Kansas. All right, in the red area, that is a 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. In the yellow, 15% risk. But once again, you look at the black outline region where the dashes going in between, includes literally all the red and pink area. That is a 10% chance of significant severe hail. Okay, which is EF. I almost said tornadoes. I've repeated this so much over the last few weeks, guys, that I'm starting to get like tongue twisted here a lot. But it means that there's a 10% chance of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. And we're going to have some very large to gigantic hail tomorrow with any especially discrete supercells to get going, along with the chance of long track tornadoes. So that's the outlook for the southern mode. Let's talk about the northern mode. This includes everybody you see on your screen: Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, surrounding states. So down here in Wichita, Pratt, you guys are in that moderate risk right now as of Sunday evening. Okay, the enhanced risk, this includes York, Lincoln, Kearney, Manhattan, Hutchinson, Emporia. This includes Kansas City, St. Joseph. The enhanced risk has been extended a little bit deeper into western Missouri, it looks like, from what I can remember in this morning's outlook. Great Bend, Hayes, you guys, Joplin, enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. All right, slight risk includes everybody in the yellow: Omaha, Des Moines, Columbia, Jefferson City, Springfield, Branson, Dodge City, Ord, O'Neill, everybody up here, slight risk, level 2 out of 5. Dark green, level 1 out of 5. What is this driven off of? Same kind of stuff. All right, we look at the tornado outlook right here. There is a 15% chance of a tornado within 25 miles in a given point in this red area. Yellow area, 10% risk of a tornado. And then the black outline region right here, the black dashes going in between it, there's a 10% chance also of a significant, of a strong tornado, EF2 or higher, within 25 miles in any given point. So I say it up here for anybody who's fast forward that didn't just listen to the southern mode of this. Say you live in Wichita. All right, somebody told you, hey, there's a 15% chance of a tornado being within 25 miles of your house. That would make you concerned, right? So, I'm not saying that to freak anybody out. I'm just saying it to, hey, be aware. Be aware of the atmosphere tomorrow and how it can potentially produce all hazards. And I really think once you get into Kansas, I think everybody just about in Kansas and central and especially eastern Kansas is going to have some sort of severe weather tomorrow. Once you get up into Kansas, you have much better forcing. You're going to have literally just a nasty line of storms sweeping through this region. And of course, don't want to ignore the brown. If you live in the brown area, 5%, green, 2% risk of a tornado. All right, you back out of this. You look at the severe wind outlook. And I do think eastern Kansas, now even all the way up here in the southeastern Nebraska, and several counties in western Missouri now, I think you guys are going to have the highest chance for significant severe winds, which is, remember, 65 knots or higher, 70 to 75 miles per hour. So if you live in this black outline region, that's where you have the chance of that. Hurricane force wind gusts, 10% chance. And the red area, 30% chance just to see winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the yellow, 15% risk of that. And just remember, with this hatch risk area, which is what we call it, all right, that doesn't mean that it's, 10 plus 30, okay, since it's over the red area to make 40. It's a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour, and then you have, like, a separate 10% risk of significant severe winds, if that makes sense. Because once upon a time, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So just want to reiterate that. And then the hail outlook, okay? Wichita, Pratt, anybody in between, just south of Hutchinson, you get that 45% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The red, 30% chance of that. And then the yellow, a 15% risk of that. And of course, everybody in the red and the pink color, you guys have that 10% chance of seeing hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. I think you're going to have some very large hail embedded in this line of storms that most likely sweeps through areas of Kansas. And don't get me wrong, Kansas could see discrete supercells too. I just think it's going to be on the southern mode, which I'll show you the potential radar depiction of that here in a second as far as the HRRR model. So let's talk about the ingredients. And I know this is probably the part that might not interest a lot of people. People just want to know, hey, Mitch, what's going to happen? I think this is very important, especially for folks who are concerned, worried, had that storm anxiety, just to know what drives this. So what you're looking at here is 500 millibar winds. This is winds like above 15,000 feet above your heads, right where you're at in this region, okay? So because this upper trough moves in and gets negatively tilted, this upper trough swings into the Rockies, gets east of the Rockies, and it brings this belt of mid-level southwesterly flow. So you have winds way above the atmosphere pushing over 60, 70 knots. You're asking, Mitch, what does this do? Well, this provides forcing in the atmosphere for thunderstorms, especially right at the edge, like the exit region of this mid-level jet. Once you get tucked in a little bit further this way, you get involved in the cold front, stable, dry air. So you really look for this region right into here. So this is providing plenty of forcing for thunderstorms and wind energy for thunderstorms. And to keep this moving, you take it all the way out to 20Z Monday, which is, just think of that as Monday afternoon Central Time. And I think the cold front's already swept through right into here. But right here in this region, you see these little splotches right here. Those are where thunderstorms are starting to develop. So plenty of forcing right into this region, even down here in Oklahoma. All right, this is that forcing mechanism for thunderstorm development moving in and wind energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Okay, we're also going to look at the low-level jet here in a second. So you got plenty of push in the atmosphere to move these storms. And that is why I really think here in this region, why you're going to have such a significant wind threat, because you have tons of forcing in the atmosphere. This is going to force these storms to go linear very quick. Linear meaning a Boeing line of storms in this region, in Kansas, northern Oklahoma, and then southern and southeastern Nebraska. Okay, so we move forward and we look at dew points. Okay, remember, dew points above 60 really is an ingredient supported for severe weather. And if you're not familiar with dew points, you're a new viewer. Okay, I always say this: dew points are the best way to measure how humid it is outside. If you get dew points in the 60s, it's getting pretty humid. You get dew points in the 70s, it's getting pretty tropical feeling outside. Kind of how it feels in the South just about all summer long, unless you get a minor miracle and get a cold front somehow. So 12Z, this is tomorrow morning. You already got dew points in the 50s all the way up into Nebraska, South Dakota. You're already getting that flow, that southwesterly flow that I just showed you. This is yanking in, especially right here into this region, that very moist air. Okay, so let's make sure we got this in motion. Pivotal weather can be really, really finicky, guys. That's why I kind of have to keep moving the screen up. I can push the arrow all day, and sometimes it just doesn't move it hour by hour. Well, let's hopefully, yeah, here it goes. So what I want you to notice, remember I was kind of drawing a line right here, that mid-level flow just a second ago. I was saying, hey, the cold front's right in here. You can see the cold front based off moisture in the atmosphere. So you see these dew points in the 20s, the teens. That's very dry, stable air moving in. Once you get those dew points that low, you don't have to run the risk of severe weather. That's why the highest severe weather threat is like kind of in this region. It's not like in western Kansas, the western panhandle of Oklahoma or Nebraska or Colorado. It's because the cold front sweeps in tomorrow morning and this completely dries out and stabilizes the atmosphere. And you need moist air for severe weather. So you keep this going and you get to about an hour after lunchtime tomorrow. What I want you to notice is the dew points are creeping higher all the way up into Nebraska, even getting some 60 plus degree dew points all the way up into South Dakota. Okay, but you look right here, you get deep moisture down here, upper 60s, mid 60s in Oklahoma, dew points in the 70s in North Texas, but you're really getting that right moist air in this region that's setting the stage for higher CAPE levels, higher storm fuel in the atmosphere. Typically, not always, but of course we got the lapse rates that are supportive too with so much dry, cool air nearby. But typically the higher moisture levels, the higher the CAPE levels. Okay, a lot of details that go into severe weather, just weather in general. Okay. But you start to get into 20Z, getting into midway late tomorrow afternoon, and this is when I think the weather can get really bad. You can see the storms actually popping up here, little splotches right here, but you're getting this pocket of dew points all the way to like the Sioux Falls, Sioux Cities region, all the way up into above the 60-degree reading mark. You're getting some pretty humid air, almost said humid air all the way up into Lincoln, Omaha, very humid, low 60s, not very, but pretty humid all the way up here into Kansas City, St. Joseph, Joplin, Oklahoma City. You're starting to get dew points in like an Oklahoma City region, Tulsa, pushing 70 degrees. That's starting to get into that tropical. You can feel the moisture in the atmosphere. So very moist air setting up shop right into here. All right, this is getting pulled up, and this dry line, kind of the progression of this cold front, starts to park. It starts to slow down, but man, check out this gradient separating pretty humid air with bone dry desert southwest air. That's your typical dry line setup. These storms will have just ample amount of severe weather ingredients. And eventually, once you get into the overnight hours, the cold front does progress eastward and clears out the atmosphere temporarily before it starts to build back in, most likely Tuesday into Wednesday. So there's your dew points, right? Your moisture levels. You check that off the box, especially for Kansas and down here to Oklahoma. All right, now let's take a look at your CAPE levels in response to your higher dew points. And the same thing, guys, because your dew points spike already, by the time you get to about mid-morning, you're getting CAPE levels in kind of like west central Kansas, western Oklahoma, even getting into Nebraska, approaching over 1,000 joules per kilogram. You keep this moving here, we're getting all the way into like an hour after lunchtime. Cape levels trying to spike to over 2,000 joules per kilogram. But look down here in Oklahoma, getting well over 2,000 joules per kilogram at this point. And then we keep going, and we're getting to about mid-afternoon, okay, 4 or 5 o'clock. You start to get rocket fuel down here as far as for these storms to really kind of eat off of and really just get going off of. It's just fuel in the atmosphere for these storms. Deep moisture levels down here, dew points well into the 60s, approaching 70. So that's why you're getting over 3,000 mixed layer Cape down here in like southern Oklahoma. But this is going to be the area right here. Plenty of fuel in the atmosphere. We get tornado outbreaks in the deep south in March and April, like with Cape levels just above 1,000 joules per kilogram, guys. This is Cape values over 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram with all the other ingredients in place. Okay? And this continues. The fuel is there. Tons of energy in the atmosphere. I mean, look at this. You do not want a supercell getting going down here in like central and northern Oklahoma. I'm telling you. I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I'm really not. But, man, there's just so much kinematic energy and thermodynamic energy, which is what we're looking at. Thermodynamic energy here as far as those Cape levels. Kinematic energy is your wind flow aloft. And, you know, the last thing we'll look at with this as far as ingredients, this is going to be the wild card. And I don't even think it's a wild card. I think it's going to happen. With that negatively tilted trough, you have a deepening surface slope up here. It's way up here in the northern plains. Okay? But what's going to happen here is you already are going to have, around lunchtime or just after, you already have that low-level jet cranking. And one thing about the low-level jet here is once you get a low-level jet approaching like 30 to 40 knots, you know, about 45 to 50 miles per hour, about a mile above your head, 4,000 to 6,000 feet above your head, and you can see the low-level jet, guys, on a day right before the day of a severe weather event, before the action gets going is what I'm trying to say. You can see the clouds right. It seems like you can almost reach out and touch them. Just going what seems like a million miles an hour. You can see the sky looks like it's moving. But what you notice here is look at these wind barbs right here. They're pointing directly out the south. This is your stout, southerly, low-level jet just helping to aid in forcing all that low-level moisture to the north. Okay? So you keep going here. And what I want you to notice is watch down here in southern Kansas and Oklahoma how this low-level jet just really gets cranking down here, even all the way down to Oklahoma. This does a few things. One, it provides even more forcing in the atmosphere for thunderstorm development. Two, it increases your damaging wind threat, especially with winds, I mean, just a few thousand feet above your head really whipping. You know that's going to mix the surface with some of those storms, right? And then three, it provides ingredients for tornadoes. It really provides winds coming out of a certain direction at a certain height, which in this case your low-level jet is coming right out the south just about, and then the mid-levels is coming out kind of the southwest. So two different directions, not a huge shift in directions, but those two different directions in the atmosphere provides a spin in the atmosphere. This increases your tornado threat. Any kind of spin in the atmosphere a lot of times is going to enhance your tornado threat if you got all the other ingredients on the table. So low-level jet is cranking over 40 knots, 45, 50 knots. This really starts to crank tomorrow afternoon and evening across these areas. And this is really kind of providing a lot of what we call kinematic energy for this line of storms sweeping across Kansas. So the energy, wind flow-wise aloft, is really going here. So if this continues, I think there's going to be a nasty line of storms sweeping through like Missouri and Iowa as we get late to tomorrow evening, tomorrow night. And we'll kind of keep this going. If it would move, there we go. And there's going to be a lot of wind energy is what we should call it ahead of this. And I think there could be a sweeping line of storms down here too. So with all that being said, probably the thing that really people want to see here is what could the radar look like tomorrow? What is going to be the timing, the evolution, the structure of these storms? So the latest HRRR model is a bit alarming, okay? But we know that these models are not gospel. They just are used for guidance, okay? But let's take a look at the HRRR model. It's around 10 a.m. If you're confused about the time frame we're at, back this up 1 hour because this is an Eastern time and I can't change it to Central time for whatever reason. It won't let me. So this is 10 a.m. Notice just some moist flow getting pulled up in the form of maybe some showers, maybe. Okay? We start to get to about midday. Well, it's about 1 p.m. All right? There's some storms already getting going here in western Kansas, right? They could already be producing severe hazards. Hail, large hail, damaging winds. Tornadoes, we'll have to see. So we keep this going. Because there's so much forcing in the atmosphere, it's about 4 p.m., you immediately get storms firing off right off the dry line. And these immediately are going severe. Within an hour of them forming, they're going severe, producing all hazards potentially. Because remember, that low-level jet is strengthening. That mid-level jet is really pushing in this area. And this is really just forcing the atmosphere for thunderstorm development. And because you have all this energy in the atmosphere, of course, those storms are going to form. I can't rule out some storms forming around the Texarkana area, southwestern Arkansas. It's very possible. We'll see what happens. But this is where we're focusing in on. So we get into 5 p.m., 6 p.m. We'll stop it right here. Let's go to 7 p.m. All right? Storms cruising through central and eastern Kansas. I mean, producing all hazards. Looks like they just moved through Hutchinson. We'll back it up a little bit. For example, Dodge City, will you even get a drop of rain? You might not. Okay? Then these storms kind of rumble through Hutchinson based off this run around 5 to 6 p.m. All right? They make their way through, start knocking on the doorstep of Wichita, producing all hazards potentially. But I want you to look at this lone cell down here in like north central Oklahoma. Oklahoma City right here, Tulsa right here. Just to give you an idea where this is at. You see this, you look at this and you're like, oh man, that's cute. That's not that big of a deal. That cell, if something like this happens, it's around 7 p.m. north of OKC, okay, Oklahoma City. That cell is discrete and it's taking advantage of all the ingredients in the atmosphere. Nothing's bothering it. It's working with over 3,000 joules per kilogram CAPE. It's working with an increasing low-level jet. It's working with favorable lapse rates, cooling aloft as far as temperatures, and it's working with favorable moisture in the atmosphere. This is your worst case scenario. And when I tell you if something like this happens, you will have an opportunity for an EF3, EF4, EF5 tornado. I'm not trying to hype stuff up, but that is how the ingredients are going to be there tomorrow. We hope that nothing gets discrete on the southern flank of these storms. But please, guys, you do not rule out embedded tornadoes in this line of storms. Do not in eastern Kansas either. But you keep this going. Look at this cell just cruising. Let's hope this doesn't evolve like this. But, you get into about 9 p.m., the sun's starting to set. You watch for everything, especially on the southern side of this. All right? And then I do think this, as we get to about 11 p.m., all of a sudden this is evolving into a linear structure, but it's still producing damaging winds. It's producing large hail and embedded tornadoes. Look at it blasting through and getting very close to Springfield. It's blasting through kind of western Missouri up here, which we'll get closer here in a second. Look at this one cell popping up around Oklahoma City. Okay? And then you want to watch in Tulsa as a line of storms works in maybe around midnight or after, maybe. And then look at Springfield. Look at those storms blasting through in the wee hours of the morning. Fayetteville getting storms. And then these are cruising across the Ozarks and hitting Columbia, Missouri, for example, after midnight tomorrow night. Okay? So, one thing I'll tell you, and remember I keep, hitting on there's going to be all the ingredients for tornadoes out here. This is a great example of it. This is going to be the most, alarming looking significant tornado parameter that you can see here. Watch how the numbers spike. And before I look at, the maxed out look at this, just think of this, and it's what it is. The higher the numbers you see on your screen, the more vibrant colors, that's where the best ingredients for tornadoes is at. Okay? So that doesn't mean if you see like a white color, you're going to get, your house is going to get hit by a tornado. It just means that all the ingredients are out there. So your second thing you look for is, do you actually get a storm that takes advantage of these ingredients? Okay? So just keep that in mind. And as we go here, for example, in North Texas, holy smokes, look at this. This is around 9 p.m. You got significant tornado parameters almost near 20. All right, Oklahoma City well above 10. Tons of ingredients in the atmosphere. But I want you to watch. You see, remember that lone storm I talked to you about? There it is. It's eating the ingredients. It's literally munching off the ingredients in the atmosphere. It's fueling it, and you can actually see where that storm is on that run I just showed you of the HRRR model. Literally tapping into all that energy for it. That's why if anything forms this discrete in southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma, man, all bets are off. They really are. Okay? So definitely a lot of ingredients in the atmosphere. And of course, you look at this significant tornado parameter, and we're going to have to back this up. Look at this. And remember, this just indicates rotation with some of these storms on this particular model run. But it's going to pick up on that storm. There it is. You see that southern storm right in here? That is a concerning signal. Okay? That is your storm you want to watch out for if something like this was formed. But I want you to look up here, and with this line of storms sweeping through, tons of rotation showing up with these storms. And there's going to be there's going to be, you're probably going to have embedded tornadoes in eastern Kansas, most likely. Okay? Looking at Missouri all the way into tomorrow morning. But man, anything on this southern mode, you can see the more vibrant reds and stuff like that, even some pinks. This is where you're going to have a danger zone for very strong tornadoes. Now, I want to know something. I want you guys to know something. There's a chance that you might not even get a drop of rain where you have a moderate risk. There's a chance of that, especially on the southern mode of this. So don't diss on the weather, people, if your house doesn't get a storm tomorrow in Oklahoma. This is somewhat of a conditional threat of something very significant. Okay? Just remember that. Just remember that. So I do want to show you this. This is the predicted wind gust from the HRRR model. And, you can see the pockets in these storms. You see these areas right here. This wind's pushing, 50, 60, 70 miles per hour in these little pockets where it shows these storms sweeping through. So we look at this just to say, hey, this particular run of the HRRR model indicating those very strong damaging wind gusts embedded in some of these storms. You're going to have that low-level jet really fueling that damaging wind threat in this region, and that's certainly going to cause issues. And I will look at the NAM. The NAM has a linear bias, which means it likes to turn everything into a line of storms very quick, and that's exactly what it does with this. It does show some discrete action down here in southwestern Oklahoma, and it shows a nasty storm down here in southern Oklahoma, so that's kind of something different. But look at this line of storms. I think it does have the right idea in eastern Kansas. I think we're going to have a nasty line of storms in eastern Kansas. But I don't know if anything's going to be really linear in Oklahoma. I think whatever forms in Oklahoma, especially in central Oklahoma, has the chance to be very discrete, which you don't want to see. I think you could have more of basically the further north you get in Oklahoma into Kansas, the higher chance for a sweeping, damaging line of storms. But this is what the NAM shows. So, moving a little bit further north, we'll include the rest of northern Kansas and all of Nebraska. Let's back this up a little bit. This tomorrow morning, not a whole lot going on, but immediately, you even got a wintry mix up here. You can see there's some cold air nearby. But immediately around 1 p.m., you get nasty storms forming in northern Kansas. I would say, they're probably going to form well east of like Goodland and Colby for sure. But look at these storms here in southern Nebraska, northern Kansas sweeping through. And it's the same thing up here. You're lacking somewhat of the thermodynamic ingredient for severe weather, but you got plenty of wind energy up here, and you're going to have a nasty line of storms and the potential for some tornadoes for sure. But this is going to be more so a line of storms capable of producing damaging winds. This is around 5 p.m. Storms are making their way through northern Kansas and then now eastern sections of Nebraska. I think this is going to be a one sweeping motion of storms. Of course, we got to watch out for any storms that develop out ahead of this line. But, we start to get into 7 p.m. These storms are slamming Lincoln, Omaha. And somebody made a good point. I forgot what percentage they said. They said, as somebody that follows me on social media, and I appreciate you very much. I'm not sure of your name, but you always interact with me on social media, on Twitter, and I really appreciate it. He said that I think 95% of Nebraska's population live in eastern Nebraska. So, you guys are going to get some nasty weather tomorrow evening for sure. That's going to sweep through, damaging wind gusts or potential with this. So definitely be aware of that. And then we look at that updraft velocity swath. You cannot rule out rotation with this storms. Especially once you get into eastern Nebraska and, of course, northern Kansas. The further south you get, the better, I would say, the more higher-end ingredients you have overlapping each other. But there's these rotation with these storms showing up. So you are going to have some embedded tornadoes in this line of storm. And who knows, you might get something discrete out of this. Let's hope not. But, guys, this is between now and Tuesday morning. The winds are going to be whipping regardless if you get storms or not. That's especially the case in western Nebraska, western South Dakota, Colorado, western Kansas, because you have the ejection of this surface low with this trough getting negative. So you're already going to have, 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts. Black Hills is going to get blasted with a hurricane force winds. But if you look at these little pockets right in here, this is embedded, gust of winds being picked up by this particular one, the HRRR model, gusting to, 50, 60, 70 miles per hour. Very strong winds are possible with these storms. So be aware of that. All right. Then we kind of cover the rest of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And I want to show you this because we're going to start this off like 7 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. There could be a pretty nasty line of storms that kind of outruns its coverage, if you will. It kind of outruns the ingredients. But this is around 10 p.m. These storms are blasting through Kansas City, northwestern Missouri, almost all of Iowa. This is going to be a pretty intense line of storms that sweeps through Des Moines, western Iowa. By the time we're like around midnight, this is making its way right through the heart of Iowa. This is a pretty intense line of storms, folks, making its way through Iowa and Missouri. And then we make our way into like 2 a.m. These storms are just knocking on the doorstep of Columbia, making their way through Springfield, all the way up here to getting close to like Davenport, Iowa City. I mean, these storms are starting to move through. And then I think by the time we start to get into like 5, 6 a.m., these storms are probably abruptly waking you guys up Tuesday morning in St. Louis, sweeping through western Illinois, maybe as far north as like southern sections of Wisconsin. And yeah, I think this will be weakening for sure. But this is a big player on Tuesday's severe weather threat, this complex of storms. How much does it stabilize the atmosphere? It's a big question. So we'll talk about Tuesday here in a second. Well, actually, we're about to talk about here in a minute, actually. But this is kind of the beginning of Tuesday. Okay, so I hope that helps, guys. We'll redo it all again tomorrow morning. But yeah, speaking of Tuesday, slight risk of severe weather from the Texarkana area right through Little Rock, Memphis, central and western Tennessee, the Boot Hill, Missouri. You might as well say all of Kentucky, all the way up into the Ohio Valley. They've actually downgraded something with this. There's just a big question on basically we're kind of watching with this, and we're going to show you here in a second. A secondary low that tries to form right here in the Midwest. But does it form? If it does, I think some sort of weak energy does. But if something stronger does, then you're probably going to have a bigger severe weather day. I think we got a couple things to figure out about Tuesday. Tuesday could be a weaker day as far as severe weather, which would be good between Monday and Wednesday, which I think will be a bigger day, Wednesday. But we're still watching Tuesday, okay? I think we're probably going to have a risk of all hazards in a way. I just don't think the tornado threat will be the highest risk for Tuesday. I think damaging winds and large hail will potentially be the biggest risk. But we're going to watch Tuesday, okay? Driven off the same setup, huge area low pressure up here with energy rounding around it, okay? And then we get into Wednesday. Wednesday, I think, has the potential to be a big day across the Midwest. I mean, the Mid-South, all the way down to northeast Texas, eastern Oklahoma. I think that maybe the highest risk day could be right in here, the highest risk area, I should say. But right now, 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. My gut feeling tells me that we're going to wake up tomorrow morning with an enhanced risk for day 3. And then, of course, we're inside day 3, so we're day 4, so we'll have an enhanced outlook. I think we're going to have that issued. So Wednesday, 15% risk, slight risk for a huge area. And then we get into day 5 and day 6. This is Thursday and Friday, right? I don't think day 7 and day 8 is going to be much of anything, but we'll watch. Day 5 is Thursday. It says predictability too low, but I do think there'll be severe weather for Thursday. I think there'll be severe weather in areas of the South somewhere. I think Southeast could see a severe weather day too, including my neck of the woods. And then as we get into Friday, day 6, I think we're going to have severe weather also, but I think it's going to be confined to the immediate deep, deep south. I'm talking about hugging the Gulf coastline. I think stable air begins to crash into this whole region, but I do think you'll hang on to that moisture down here. This will allow for some severe weather along the Gulf coastline, I think. Okay, that could tweak some. So we're done talking about the outlooks. Let's actually talk about the ingredients, what's driving Tuesday through Friday. So we'll look at the same setup. This is starting Tuesday morning, right? So we start to move into Tuesday afternoon. This area of low pressure really begins to get pretty much amplified, get very large. So at the base of this, you have a stout mid-level flow just riding across this region, right down here, right? We have some sort of surface cold front somewhere into here, most likely. This will is keeping us very stable in certain areas of this mid-level flow. On the southerly area of this mid-level flow, you have an unstable moist air mass, which is what I'm about to show you here in a second. So for Tuesday, you look at this and you say, all right, you got a 50, 60 knot mid-level flow right over this region, which is that, that 15% risk area. This is riding right over a very moist air mass, so this is creating forcing for thunderstorms potentially to get going here in this region. Now, the big question mark here is, do we get thunderstorms? Are we going to get some sort of energy that forms up here that allows forcing for thunderstorms? You're seeing kind of the ripples in the isobars right in here in the southern high plains, but you're not seeing many ripples in this line, which you see how you have these kind of like heartbeat kind of ripples back and forth. That indicates some sort of actual impulse of energy at the base of this trough. You're seeing more straight lines in this region, but you can see a little ripple right in here. That tells me there's some energy right here that could provide more of a forcing mechanism for more thunderstorms across the Midwest. We still got to watch. All right, but as we start to get into Wednesday, okay, let's get this in motion. Come on, work with me. We start to get into Wednesday. We'll take it all the way Wednesday morning. The same kind of look is there, guys, right? This is Wednesday afternoon, most favorable time of the day for severe weather, afternoon hours, evening hours, okay? We still got this closed upper low up here across areas of the north central U.S., the high plains. And we still got all this mid-level wind flow screeching across areas of the southern plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. It's starting to increase to the southeast. So where's the energy going to be in this area? Well, you're starting to see some kind of wiggles in the isobars here, little wiggles right into here. That tells me there's probably a little bit more energy to work with in this region. But of course, there's going to be some sort of boundary right into here that we got to figure out where it's going to be. This is going to separate dry and moist air. So this southerly area, once again, this mid-level flow is going to be riding over that very moist air, which we're about to show you here in a second. Okay? So that's Wednesday. I think that Wednesday could be a big day because we're going to have some sort of energy, more energy riding the base of that trough. I'm going to show you a better example of that here in a second. Okay, and then we get into Thursday, which right now just says predictability too low. But I really think this is when that trough begins to amplify, and I think we're going to have some sort of energy embedded in this mid-level flow. But if you notice, that 50, 60 knot mid-level flow is starting to shoot southward at this point. This tells me that the cold front is oozing southward and that the ingredients for severe weather is really shrinking and getting confined to the south. We just got to figure this out. Still a lot of flow. And then you look into Friday. It's the same thing, folks. A lot of flow out there. It might do something weird Friday. We just got to figure out. But I really think the cold front really digs down into here. And it's just going to be weird. Friday's going to be a weird day. I think Friday is really the beginning day to really what's going to be a cooler pattern for the next several days across especially the eastern U.S. We're actually going to show you right at the very end the Climate Prediction Center outlook for the next 6 to 10 days. And for you cool weather fans, you'll probably like it. But as far as those moisture levels, guys, you get all the way to Tuesday afternoon, very moist air, right? Especially for the south, the deep south, the western deep south state, dew points well into the low 70s. Excuse me, losing my voice. We're almost 45 minutes deep into this video. But you look at the dew points into the 60s, all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Okay, so there's juice in the atmosphere for some thunderstorms. We just got to wonder if we're going to get any thunderstorm development. And then once again, we take it all the way into Wednesday afternoon. All right, a lot of moist air builds right back in temporarily. And this to me looks like some sort of triple point being kind of found out here on the European. You see how dew points are surging all the way into southeast Iowa, and then they kind of get zoned out right here. It tells me there's some sort of a boundary right here separating. In fact, there is drier and more moist air. I want to watch the Midwest really for a big severe weather threat. We're probably going to be some sort of low somewhere into here. Very moist air to the south too. Dew points are just going to be tropical, oppressive humidity. Humidity really begins to increase the southeast too. So, but look at this boundary right into here. So obviously if you're in that drier, cooler air, probably not going to get any severe weather. And then you look at Thursday. I think Thursday shows it really good. You can see where there's something weird going on here. You see kind of the separation between very, very moist tropical swamp air in the deep south, right? All the way up into the mid-Atlantic, getting into the upper 60s as far as dew points. But I'm talking about dew points getting into the mid to upper 70s in Louisiana, Mississippi. A very humid day for you folks down here in the deep south. But if you look, there's a boundary right here, stabilizing everybody in areas of the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley, areas of the Midwest, and areas of the Southern Plains, except Texas. But if you see, look at these dew points are kind of spiking up here into western PA and the areas of Ohio. There's probably some sort of surface low right in here. And I would bet there's some severe weather ongoing right here for Thursday across the Mid-Atlantic, upper Southeast. I really do. Are you going to have another low that kind of forms over here, taps into all this moisture right in here? Not sure. And then, of course, you look into Friday. And you can actually see it happening right down here, right? Friday, look at this. You get this cold front that sweeps in, and you're going to have probably a cooler, more spring-like weekend across the deep south and southeast. It's really going to clear out the atmosphere, but if you notice the immediate Gulf coastline, hanging on to that rich moisture for dear life. So that will introduce the opportunity for still a severe weather chance sometime Friday, but it's really shunted to the south. Much smaller real estate area running the risk of severe weather. Okay. And of course, the last thing we'll look at, well, not quite, almost. We're almost at the end. All right, look at all the Cape levels, the high storm fuel up in this region. I mean, but is there going to be any kind of impulses of energy that really tap into all of this fuel in the atmosphere? I would say in Texas, probably not, but we'll have to watch. But, you know, you want to watch up here in the Ohio Valley areas in the Midwest. You got a lot of fuel up here, over 2,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer Cape. Are we going to have an impulse of energy that fires up these storms that taps into this energy? I think we're going to have something for Tuesday. I don't want to completely ignore Tuesday. We got to watch. And then we start to get into Wednesday afternoon. Guys, this is when you have obviously rocket fuel down here near the Texarkana area, southeast Oklahoma, Texas, eastern Texas, down here to Arkansas, Louisiana. I mean, Cape values well over 3,000 joules per kilogram. But look at the Cape spiking down here in the Carolinas too. I mean, deep south, mid-south, it's getting very high. But you want to watch up here. You see these pockets over 1,000, 1,500 joules per kilogram. I think that you're going to have your best overlapping kinematics somewhere up here, your best forcing. So remember, you don't need high-end Cape levels. You don't need all this. Typically, when your Cape levels are extremely high, you're a lot of times got some sort of cap in place, really preventing storm development. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now you get into your Thursday, that cold front starts to ooze in, right? So got a lot of energy into the Mid-Atlantic. Cape levels well over 1,000. Pockets of 2,000, southeast same. You get down here into the deep south, even higher because your higher moisture levels. Dew points in like mid to upper 70s will provide a lot of fuel in the atmosphere. But do you have anything forcing these storms getting going? I think some sort of low will be up here Thursday. And then Friday, not going to look at that, but this really clears out the atmosphere. And I think Friday will be more of a marginal day, but we'll have to watch. So I hope that some people have stayed tuned to this, because this is going to show it very well as far as these surface features that I keep speaking on. Okay, there's the surface low right in here that's going to provides the thunderstorm development for Monday. This kind of gets trapped up here, spins around with this closed upper low. All right, so what we watch for here is Tuesday afternoon. Are we going to have some sort of weak low that forms right over here that gets some more storms going in the Midwest, Ohio Valley? Not sure. It doesn't even pop up a low over here anymore. It was this morning. In yesterday's video, it doesn't anymore. What I want you to watch with this new low that forms right here Tuesday evening, as we are starting to get into like Wednesday morning, right? We already have a sub 1,000 millibar low popping off convection in Missouri, areas of the Midwest, and the mid-Mississippi Valley already Wednesday morning. And then this is just the Euro, though. It could be different. And then we have a 996 millibar low Wednesday afternoon. You can see this surface feature. We got to watch this little low over here, too, in the Northeast, too. But, of course, with a surface low riding the base of this trough, I mean, all these splotches of green and yellow and orange, this could be strong to severe storms. A lot of severe weather. Of course, the closer you are getting up to this low, the better forcing for thunderstorms, the better kinematics. What kind of thermodynamics do you have? Remember I talked about that triple point in the southeast Iowa? It's because of this surface low right here, Wednesday afternoon. And then, what is this low going to do as it kind of meanders across, the Midwest, the Great Lakes region? That's still cruising at sub 1,000 millibars. Well, here it is, 996 millibar low into Ohio, western PA. There's that low, and you could see it on the dew points. when I just showed you this just a second ago. This low right here will probably cause severe weather across the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. I think for Thursday, I think that that'll be the risk area, in my opinion, the highest risk area. We cannot rule out thunderstorms down here too, in Texas and Louisiana, but I think it could potentially be a bigger day Thursday in those areas I just mentioned. And then we get into Friday. What happens after that? I think we're going to have some leftover energy down here. I just don't think it'll be as big of a deal. I think the atmosphere clears out, which leads us to this. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, May 11th through the 15th. They're calling for, we haven't looked at this since the winter, right? They're calling for below average temperatures across the eastern and southern U.S., and that is because a big time trough that digs down clears out the atmosphere and will allow for severe weather to chill out for at least a time period. 50-minute video, guys. Hooray, we're done with it. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. God bless.